Many women with ADHD assume that their exhaustion comes from having too much to do. They blame the endless to-do list, the family responsibilities, the appointments, the decisions, the emotional labor, or the simple reality of trying to keep up with modern life. While all of those things can certainly contribute to fatigue, there is another source of exhaustion that often goes completely unnoticed. It is possible to feel drained not because of what you are doing, but because of what your brain is continuously preparing for. Modern technology has created a situation that no human nervous system evolved to handle. For the first time in history, other people can reach us almost instantly at any moment of the day. Through email, text messages, WhatsApp, social media platforms, work applications, and countless notifications, our attention is exposed to a constant possibility of interruption. Even when no message arrives, part of the brain remains aware that one could arrive. This creates a subtle but powerful form of cognitive stress that most people never recognize. If you often feel mentally exhausted despite not accomplishing very much, if your concentration seems weaker than it used to be, or if your brain feels busy even when you are trying to rest, constant availability may be playing a much larger role than you realize. Today, we are going to explore what happens inside the brain when it is always reachable, why this creates a hidden energy drain, and why periods of intentional unavailability may be one of the most powerful nervous system interventions available to modern adults. The first thing we need to understand is that the human brain evolved in a world with boundaries. Throughout most of human history, communication happened in distinct moments. A conversation took place, and then it ended. A visitor arrived, and then they left. A letter was delivered, and days or weeks passed before a response was expected. There were natural periods when nobody could reach you. Work ended because the workday ended. Social obligations ended because people were no longer physically present. The nervous system experienced regular periods of closure. Modern technology has quietly eliminated many of those boundaries. Today, work can follow you into your evening. Friends can reach you while you are working. Clients can reach you while you are eating dinner. Social media can reach you while you are on vacation. Even when nobody contacts you directly, your brain understands that they could. This may sound insignificant, but the nervous system does not only respond to reality, it responds to expectation. The anticipation of a possible interruption changes the way attention operates, even when the interruption never occurs. One of the most important principles in neuroscience is that attention is a limited resource. Most people think of attention as something that simply happens, but in reality, it is one of the brain's most expensive functions. At every moment, your brain is deciding what deserves focus, what can be ignored, what requires action, and what should be postponed. These decisions require energy. They require neural resources. They require constant filtering. When the brain knows that messages, notifications, emails, and requests can arrive at any moment, part of its attentional system remains slightly open, constantly monitoring the environment for new information. This creates a state that psychologists sometimes describe as continuous partial attention. You are never fully focused on one thing because part of your awareness remains available for something else. Many people experience this so frequently that it feels normal, yet from a neurological perspective, it represents a significant cognitive burden. This burden becomes even more relevant for people with ADHD. ADHD is often misunderstood as a disorder of attention deficit, but many researchers now describe it more accurately as a condition involving attention regulation. The problem is not that attention is absent. The problem is that attention is more difficult to direct, sustain, and protect. ADHD brains are naturally drawn toward novelty because novelty triggers dopamine release. Every notification, every message, Every vibration of the phone represents a potential source of new information. Even when you resist checking it immediately, the brain has already registered its presence. Part of your cognitive system is now evaluating the interruption. Who sent the message? Is it important? Does it require a response? Can it wait? Should I check it now? These questions are often processed automatically, but they still consume energy. The result is that ADHD brains can become trapped in a cycle of constant attentional shifting that gradually erodes both focus and mental stamina. One concept that helps explain this phenomenon is known as attention residue. Researchers have found that when attention shifts from one task to another, part of the brain remains attached to the previous task. Imagine you are writing an important document and an email notification appears. You glance at the email for 30 seconds and then return to your work. Most people assume their attention returns immediately. In reality, part of the brain continues processing the email even after the screen is closed. Thoughts linger, questions remain active. The interruption leaves a residue behind. Now imagine this happening 20, 50, or 100 times per day. It becomes easier to understand why so many people struggle to enter deep focus. Their brains are carrying fragments of dozens of unfinished cognitive threads. Concentration becomes fragmented, not because they lack intelligence, but because their attentional resources are continually being divided. Another important concept is something called the Zeigarnik effect. This psychological phenomenon describes the brain's tendency to remember unfinished tasks more strongly than completed ones. Unfinished tasks create what many psychologists call open loops. An unanswered email becomes an open loop. A text message requiring a reply becomes an open loop. A conversation that needs follow-up becomes an open loop. A request that you have not yet addressed becomes an open loop. The brain dislikes open loops because they represent uncertainty. As a result, it continues allocating mental resources toward them. This is one reason why people often find themselves thinking about work emails late at night, or suddenly remembering a forgotten message while trying to relax. The task may be small, but the brain continues treating it as unfinished business. Modern communication platforms create open loops at an unprecedented scale. Hundreds of tiny unresolved commitments accumulate throughout the day, creating a level of cognitive clutter that previous generations never had to manage. For women, this challenge is often amplified by something known as mental load. Mental load refers to the invisible cognitive labor involved in managing daily life. It includes remembering appointments, anticipating needs, coordinating schedules, planning meals, tracking responsibilities, maintaining relationships, and handling countless details that keep life functioning smoothly. Much of this work is invisible because it happens internally. Nobody sees the planning process. Nobody sees the remembering. Nobody sees the constant monitoring. Yet it consumes energy. When constant accessibility is layered on top of an already full mental load, the result can be overwhelming. Every incoming message becomes another demand competing for limited cognitive resources. Over time, many women begin to feel as though their attention no longer belongs to them. Instead of directing their own focus, they spend their days responding to the priorities of other people. One of the most surprising findings from nervous system research is that recovery requires more than rest. Many people believe that sitting on the couch, watching television, or scrolling through social media counts as recovery. Sometimes it does, often it does not. True recovery occurs when demands decrease. The nervous system can only relax when it no longer expects immediate action. This distinction is critical. If you spend your evening checking messages, responding to notifications, monitoring email, and remaining mentally available, your body may be resting, but your attentional system remains active. The brain continues scanning, evaluating, and preparing. This is one reason why people often feel exhausted despite having spent hours doing very little. Their nervous systems never truly transitioned into recovery mode. There is also a deeper psychological issue at play. Human beings have a fundamental need for autonomy. We need to feel that we have some control over our attention, our time, and our energy. Constant accessibility slowly erodes that sense of control. When anyone can reach you at any moment, your attention begins to feel less like a personal resource and more like a public utility. Even if interruptions are infrequent, the possibility of interruption remains present. Over time, this can create a subtle sense of tension that many people struggle to identify. They know they feel overwhelmed, but they cannot pinpoint the source. In reality, part of their nervous system is maintaining a state of low-level vigilance throughout the day. Not because something is wrong, but because something might happen. This is one reason why many people report feeling unexpectedly calm when they spend time in nature. The benefit is not simply the trees, the fresh air, or the beautiful scenery. Nature often removes demands. There are fewer notifications, fewer decisions, fewer requests, fewer interruptions. Attention is allowed to settle. The brain can focus on one thing at a time. This aligns with research on attention restoration theory, which suggests that natural environments help restore depleted attentional resources. For ADHD brains in particular, these periods of reduced cognitive demand can feel profoundly restorative. What many people describe as peace may simply be the absence of constant attentional competition. The encouraging news is that you do not need to abandon technology in order to protect your nervous system. What matters is creating boundaries. The goal is not isolation. The goal is recovery. Small changes can produce surprisingly large benefits. Turning off non-essential notifications reduces attentional interruptions. Checking email at designated times rather than continuously throughout the day decreases cognitive switching. Leaving the phone in another room during meals creates periods of genuine presence. Taking a walk without a device allows attention to stabilize. Creating even 1 hour each evening during which nobody has direct access to you can provide the nervous system with a valuable opportunity to decompress. These practices may seem simple, but they restore something that modern life has gradually taken away: the experience of psychological closure. Perhaps the most important realization is that being constantly available is not the same thing as being supportive, productive, or connected. In fact, the opposite is often true. When attention becomes fragmented, we become less present in the moments that matter most. We listen less deeply. We think less clearly. We engage less fully. Protecting attention is not selfish. It is a form of stewardship. Your attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess because it shapes the quality of your experience, your relationships, your work, and your well-being. If you constantly feel mentally tired despite getting enough sleep, if your focus seems weaker than it once was, or if you struggle to experience genuine relaxation, consider asking yourself a simple question. When was the last time you were truly unavailable? Not asleep, not distracted, not scrolling, simply unavailable. For many people, the answer reveals exactly why their nervous system feels so depleted. If this video resonated with you, let me know in the comments. How often do you spend time completely unreachable? And if you're interested in ADHD, nervous system health, longevity, energy, and creating a calmer life with a complex brain, make sure to subscribe to Complex Brain Living. New videos every Wednesday and Sunday.